Hi, I'm Scott Nolan. I'm a criminal defense attorney in Northern Virginia, and I'm going to talk to you about what you should do when you're pulled over for a DUI. I'm going to tell you 4 things you should do and 4 things you must never do when pulled over for a DUI. So the first thing is the stop itself. When you are stopped by a police officer, don't just immediately pull over to the nearest spot. Look around, look for a good parking lot to get into, or a wide margin if you're on the highway, a good, safe place to pull over. Not just for your safety, not just for the police officer's safety, but because a good attorney is going to use that information to help to begin to establish that you were acting like a sober person. Officer, when you turned on your signals, did my client pull over at a safe location? Did my client drive safely? Did she park where a good driver would park? And all of those things go to help establish that you were not intoxicated. So the next thing is stay in the car. It is astonishing how many people decide to get out of the car and either go confront the officer, don't do that, or just talk to the officer outside the car. Don't know why, don't know what they're thinking. It's a terrible idea. Rational people, good drivers don't do that. Stay in your car, the officer feels safer, and you're gonna have a better evening. Third, be polite. Officers have a hard job, no reason to be rude to them. I do not mean that you should do everything they want you to do. You absolutely shouldn't. But almost the very first thing I ask an officer before we ever get to a trial is, was my client polite to you? Because if the answer is yes, the chance that my negotiation with the prosecution is going to go well is much, much higher. If the person was a jerk to the police officer, that's going to be a very tough day for you. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is produce your license and registration. Many people wonder whether they have to. Yes, under almost every state's law, certainly in Virginia, you must provide the officer with your license and your registration. It's probably a good idea to also show them your insurance papers. It's not actually required. Now, Virginia law only says that you must display. So you will get some people who will tell you, look, be a smart guy and just hold it up to your window so that they can see it through the window. I don't recommend that. That's a good way to start off the evening very badly. That's not what reasonable people do. Just give the officer your license and registration. If you want to win your DUI case, you have to start by acting reasonably and rationally. All right, so let's talk about the things that you must never, ever do. And the number one thing that I tell people over and over again is stop talking. And I don't mean only say certain things to the officer or limit the things that you say to the officer. I mean, close your mouth and don't talk. When the officer says, do you know how fast you were going? Don't answer. When the officer says, what is your name? Hand them your license. You have to identify yourself as a driver, so do it. But don't talk. That's a hard thing to do. To stay silent is difficult, especially when you think, well, I'll be reasonable and rational. If you realize that this is DUI related, if you realize he's pulling you over because he thinks that you might be intoxicated, don't talk. Now, I want to be really clear. This is not going to help you avoid going to jail that night. If the officer pulls you over and he smells alcohol, you're going to jail that night. This is not to help that. This is to help you when it comes time to trial. Your chances of winning go up 100%. Not to 100%, they go up by 100% if you keep your mouth closed. Okay. You have a Fifth Amendment right not to talk. You have a Fifth Amendment right not to talk to the police officer, not to talk to the court. Exercise it. Every single person that I have ever represented on a DUI, or in fact any other crime, has in large part convicted themselves by the things they say. They try to help themselves. They don't realize that they're not. Don't talk. All right, so the number 2 thing is the officer is going to ask you to get out of the car. You do have to do that. But then they're going to ask you, and note that it's an ask. They're going to ask you to do field sobriety tests. Sir, ma'am, what I'd like you to do is touch your nose. What I'd like you to do is follow my pen or my light with your eyes. I'd like you to stand on one leg. I'd like you to count backwards. You're never going to hear that officer say, I am ordering you to do this. You must do this. They might put pressure on you. They might say, well, if you're sober, why wouldn't you? If you don't do this, I'm going to take you to jail, which is probably a true statement. But the fact is, if you do it, they're also going to take you to jail. Don't do any of those phony baloney tests. The law says you don't have to. Many people tell me that they think it means that they'll be arrested for refusing. Nope, you are permitted to refuse that test because it is considered to be voluntary. In the crazy, crazy world that we live in, the law and the courts say that those tests are for your benefit. And if you believe that, I have a bridge in Manhattan to sell you. Those tests are not for your benefit. They are not there to determine whether or not you're intoxicated. They are not there to help the officer decide whether to arrest you. By the time he's gotten you out of the car and the moment he's decided to give you those tests, he's already or she's already decided to arrest you. Those tests are there to give them more evidence. Only a fool would take them once you know that. Never, ever take those tests. And that includes the preliminary breath test, the little roadside device that they shove in your face and say, I want you to blow in this. They're allowed to say, I want you to, but they are not allowed to say, do it or else. You should never, under any circumstances, take that test. It's a terrible test. It is a test that's so bad it's not even allowed to come into evidence in the law. Don't take it. All right. Now, don't confuse that with the breath test after you've been arrested back at the station. Once you are under arrest, go ahead and do whatever they tell you to do. But until you are under arrest, don't do anything that they ask you to do. So the final thing that I want you to think about not doing is never ever consent to a search. Almost always the police are going to say to you, do you mind if I search your vehicle? You don't have any dead bodies in there, do you? Do you mind if I pat you down just for my own safety? The answer to any such question is no. No, don't do it. Yes, I mind. You do not have my permission. And you need to be super clear. Up until about 5 years ago, the law was undisputed that all you had to do is remain silent, and they didn't have a right to do that. Laws are changing, folks, and not for the better. You need to be unequivocal. You do not have my permission to search me or my vehicle. Now, that does not mean that you should try to prevent them from searching you or the vehicle, because they're gonna. But do not give them your permission. That will allow your attorney to argue that it was a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. Never consent to a search. All right, well, I hope that these hints helped you out. If you have any questions for me, I'd be very happy to answer them. My phone number will be in the comments below, so please give me a buzz if you need any help. I hope everyone has a great day. Bye-bye.